Welcome to this lesson on summarizing an informative article. Summarizing is a skill that is used in everyday life. When there's a problem at home, such as no internet service, being able to clearly summarize is key to getting the problem resolved. And when socializing with friends, you might make a movie recommendation by summarizing the plot, being careful not to give too much detail. In this lesson, you're going to examine the parts of a summary from the perspective of a chapter in a textbook or an informational text. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to state the key parts of a summary. Use common phrases for introducing the summary in the beginning. Use common phrases to show how the author supports the main point in the middle, and use common phrases for how the author concludes, the end, and put the parts together to summarize an informative or explanatory text. A summary's first sentence is important. It has a lot of information. The first sentence of a summary usually includes 5 pieces of information. The first piece of information is the text type. Some examples of text types are an article or a chapter, an essay, maybe an abstract. It should also include the title, the author's name, the author's purpose, such as, think of the words argues, claims, compares, etc., and the overall main point. Before you are given a few examples, why not test your knowledge? How many different text types can you name? Here are examples of different text types: an essay, article, abstract, chapter, and speech. Then there's larger texts such as books, memoirs, dissertations, videos, journals, and magazines. Before you are given a few examples, can you name any verbs for stating the author's purpose? Here's a list of different verbs that you can use to describe the author's purpose. Verbs such as evaluates, argues for, asserts that, discusses, compares and contrasts, focuses on, suggests that, and more. Depending on the purpose, the main point is located in the beginning. This is especially true for articles where the writer's purpose is to inform or explain something. To identify the main point, use good reading strategies. As a review, consider the title, the information found in the introduction and the conclusion. Preview the headings and graphics, then skim the article. As you actually read the article, highlight what you believe is the main point. Write that down, then include it in the first sentence of your summary. Why not try it out now? Write the first sentence of a summary for changing fashion. To do this well, review the article. Then write your summary's first introductory sentence. Be sure to include the text type, the title, author's name, author's purpose, and the overall main idea, which is the topic in the focus. Pause the video while you do this work. Compare your sentences with the examples listed on the screen. In what ways are they the same? In what ways are they different? If you had trouble writing these very long sentences accurately, it's okay to use 2 sentences. What's important is that the language is clear and that you state right away the 5 pieces of information: text type, title, author, purpose, and main point. Now that you can write the introductory statement, let's look at what follows. After you state the main point, follow with how the author supports the main point. In other words, state the author's supporting points. In this article, Donald Pung supports his point by listing 5 industry rules that Zara continues to break. In each example, he contrasts how Zara does business with other retailers in the industry. Each of these examples are supporting points. When writing summaries, headings are your friend. For this type of summary, you only need to state how the author supports his points. For example, Peng supports this point by, then describe each of the rules. You could also paraphrase what each of the rules are. Here are some phrases that you might use when explaining how the author supports his or her main point. You might say, for example, the author goes on to prove this point by, or in this case, Peng supports this point by offering 5 examples. It's really important that you speak from the perspective of the author. You should state what the author does, then the actual ideas that are used as support. Here, you might say something like, Peng supports this point by offering 5 specific ways Zara's rule breaking has led to its success. Just to clarify, you should state how the author supports the main point and then summarize that support. Let's review what's been covered so far. After the introductory sentence, where you state the author's purpose and main point of the text, you follow with a statement about how the author supports the main point and summarize the evidence. To do this, you could paraphrase, or you could summarize as the example here shows. Pause the video and take a minute or two to read this summary of the text. It shows one way you could summarize the middle or how the author supports the main point. On the next slide, we'll examine this more closely. As a reminder, you're examining the middle part of a summary. There are 3 things to notice. Begin by saying how Peng, the author, supports his main point, then summarize or paraphrase key supporting points and recognize that the specific details for each supporting point are not discussed. That would be too much information. Quick, check your understanding. What do you include in the middle of your summary? Did you say something like, you state how the author supports the main point and summarize the main supporting points or evidence? Now you're ready for the concluding statement. The end of the summary describes how the author concludes and adds any relevant details, such as a specific call to action. Notice the example sentence starters here. In each sentence starter, the author is the subject. In addition, each example tells the reader you are moving to the end of the summary by using words such as concludes or summing up. It also includes a description of how the author concludes. If the author's purpose is for the reader to take an action, the summary will likely include what that action is. In this case, you might say something like, in conclusion, the author calls for people to. To say how the author concludes, pay attention to the verb. In the example sentence starters, what verbs do you see? You see reinforces and calls for. You also see by phrases. For example, by restating and by predicting. Try it out. Write a concluding statement for changing fashion. Notice how different the language is in each of these example conclusion statements. Even though these examples say close to the same thing, they are written very differently. So, if your statement is also different, that doesn't indicate a problem. You now have the basics and should be able to conclude if your writing has all the necessary parts, yet nothing extra. You are ready to write a summary of the article Changing Fashion. You should feel confident in your ability to do that. Return to the examples in this lesson if you need support. Make an appointment with the Writing Center if you don't feel confident. Congratulations for completing this lesson. How confident do you feel? You should feel confident because you can use common phrases for introducing the summary, especially for naming the author, title, author's purpose, and main point. You can use common phrases to show how the author supports the main point in the middle. And you can use common phrases for how the author concludes. You can also put all the parts together to summarize an informative, explanatory article or chapter.